Okay, how about we get underway? Well, welcome to everybody. It's an extraordinary time. I hope that you and your families and your loved ones have been and remain well. It's been a tough few months, to be sure. So just maybe a few procedural things. I think from what I'm seeing, everybody has their microphones on mute, so please keep them on mute. You may want to consider, if you already have not done so, putting yourselves onto speaker view rather than gallery view. It's an unusual platform, to be sure. We're not going to be having question and answers during the session, but if you do have any questions after our meeting, by all means, give Katie an email, and then she'll either answer it directly or she'll bring it to the attention of the executive. Also, given this sort of unusual platform, we're not going to be entertaining any motions from the floor. There'll be a couple of points where you'll be asked to vote. Just a reminder, it's one vote per association from the president of the association or his or her delegate. We are recording the meeting, and we can provide you with a link to that recording on request. From what I can figure out, 2020 is the 40th anniversary of CADELPA/FOLA. And this is the first, and I really hope it is the only virtual plenary that we are going to do. It is no substitute for the in-person plenaries where we can actually make proper connections with each other, have a chance to speak and chat, etc. It's definitely going to be the shortest plenary. I'd like to start off by introducing our executive. First of all, the first vice chair and to be chair in about 2 hours, Bill Woodward. Second vice chair and Central South Regional Rep is John Krachenko. Our past chair is Jaye Hooper. Our treasurer, and you'll be hearing from her shortly, is Jane Robertson. Our regional chairs, we have Nathan Baker from Central East, Sam Michiel from Central West, Kirstin Muszynski from East Region, Bridget Wilkinson from the Northeast, Rennie Larson from the Northwest. The Southwest Regional Rep and the Legal Aid Chair is Terry Brandon. The TLA representative is Anna Wong. Our real estate co-chairs are Meredith McLennan and Eldon Horner. And of course, Executive Director Katie Robinette and our Executive Assistant Kelly Lovell. we're going to do the traditional roll call. So for any of you who have not been on one of these, I call out the name of the association in alphabetical order. When your association is called, could you just turn on your mic, introduce yourself and whether there is anyone else from your association taking part, and then please put your mic back on mute. So can we start with Algoma? If Algoma is here, if you could put yourself off mute. No? Brant? I'm not hearing anybody. Bruce? I'm not sure if this is on my end or I'm not hearing anybody. Carlton.
Here's a test. Terry Brandon here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Carlton. No?
Sorry, is that the name or is that the association?
It's the association. That's
well, then, yeah. Sorry.
Sorry, if you thought I was calling out surnames, I'm not. I'm calling out the association.
Well, Rick Haga and Craig O'Brien are both here.
Thank you. Cochran?
Tobin Lippold, I'm the only one here.
Thank you. Dufferin.
Hi, I'm Carrie Bellin. I'm the Vice President, and I'm the only one here.
Durham.
Hi, Mark Jacula. I'm the president. I'm the only one here. Morning, everyone.
Elgin. Essex.
Hello?
Hello. Frontenac.
Hello?
Warren White Knight, and Kevin Cook from Frontenac.
Hi, Warren. Gray.
Mike, it's Catherine. Mike, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Hi, Catherine.
Okay, I tried to unmute when you called Elgin, and I couldn't unmute. So, yeah, I'm here from Elgin.
Okay, thank you. Gray.
Nick Lovell, president of Gray. I'm the only one here.
Haldeman.
Good morning, everyone. Vicki Ringette, president, and I'm the only one here.
Halton.
Hi, it's Ken Klurtis, president. Melissa Fedson, our vice president, is also on the call, as well as Sam Michiel.
Hamilton.
Good morning, Mark Javidoni, president. I'm here with Rebecca Bentham, executive director.
Hastings.
Good morning, it's Sharon Leach. I'm the library chair and I'm here as delegate for Peter Robertson.
Huron. Kenora.
Good morning, Tiana Sheridan here. I am president. I'm the only one here.
Kent.
Good morning. I'm Steve Andary. I'm president, and I'm the only one here.
Lambton.
Ian Bruce, president, and Drury and Terry Brandon.
Lanark.
Good morning. It's Kate Ryan, president, and I'm online with my vice president, Elizabeth Swarbrick.
Leeds and Granville.
Good morning. I'm James Eastwood. I'm the president for Leeds Grenville, and I'm joined on the line by our vice president, Rachel Jansen.
Lennox and Addington.
Good morning, Jillian Burford Grinnell, president of Lennox and Addington. I'm the only one here.
Lincoln.
Good morning, it's Andrew Maloney. I'm the president and I'm the only one here.
Middlesex. Must be somebody from.
Good morning, it's Karen Hewlin. I'm the treasurer with Middlesex. I understand that Aaron Rankin-Nash and Bob Ledgley, our president and vice president, are going to be joining us if they're not already on the line.
Muskoka.
I, Val Tengi here, president of Muskoka Law Association. I'm alone.
Nipissing.
It's Gord Prisco. I'm alone today, and thanks very much, everybody.
Norfolk.
Paul Hosak here, president for Norfolk. I'm the only one.
Northumberland.
Good morning, Megan Adams here, president. It's just me today.
Oxford.
Micheline Beauchamp, president, Oxford Law Association, just me.
Perry Sound.
Good morning, everyone. Joyce Ferreira here. I'm the president of the Perry Sound Law Association and the only one here today.
Peel.
Hi, Paula Bateman, and Melissa Firth is with me, our executive officer.
Perth.
Sharon Bardwell, president. I'm the only one here.
Peterborough.
Chris Russell, I'm president. I'm the only one here.
Prescott and Russell.
Good morning, Marc Gauthier. I'm the president and I'm the only one here.
Rainy River.
Good morning, Doug Judson. I'm the president. I'm the only one on the call this morning.
Renfrew.
Jean-Pierre Quintel, good morning. I believe that I'm the only one here and I'm the president of the association.
Simcoe.
Good morning, Catherine Whitehead, president, Simcoe County. I believe our past president, Corey Wall, should be on the call as well.
Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry.
Chris Gagey, President. I'm the only one here.
Sudbury?
Darren Johanne, President. I'm the only one here.
Temiskaming?
Hi, Mark Ducharme, President. I'm the only one here.
Thunder Bay?
Good morning, Terry Lynn Mietanen, President. Also joining us is our past President, Rennie Larson.
Toronto?
Anna Wong here, President's Delegate, and I'm here with our ED, Joan Rotaig-Lang.
Victoria Halliburton? Anybody? Waterloo?
Good morning, Cynthia Davis. I'm here with Pia Williams, our ED.
Welland? No?
Peter Camilletti, President for Wellington.
Okay. York? No. Okay, welcome everybody. I also would like to extend a welcome to, and you're going to be hearing from them in a little while, Joanne Blenkin and Neil Guthrie. They are the chair and vice chair, respectively, of LIRN. They'll be speaking after Katie's executive director report, so I want to extend a welcome to them. I'd also like to welcome Sheena Weir from the Law Society. Sheena has been a very good friend and supporter of FOLA and prior to CADELPA, and certainly is a friend of mine, so welcome to Sheena. And I also want to welcome Corey Wall and Alan Weinpearl, who in about an hour from now, I think, are going to be new regional representatives and will be on our board, so welcome to them. My chair's update, I'd like to talk to you about three things that has happened since the last plenary in November. I want to talk about what's happening with the Ministry of the Attorney General. I want to talk very briefly about mentorship, and then, of course, COVID. So with the Ministry of the Attorney General, for those of you who were at the plenary in Toronto in November, you'll remember that Attorney General Doug Downey announced that he wanted to change the manner by which judges and justices of the peace were appointed in Ontario. And until COVID came up, the judicial appointment process was really the one issue that I was spending most of my time on since the last plenary, because we think it's a big deal. Who sits on the bench in Ontario is important. These judges have a huge impact on people's lives, and who sits on the bench really goes to the core of our justice system. So since last November, I've had quite a number of meetings with the staff of the Attorney General, with the Attorney General himself. I've had meetings and discussions with a number of members from the judiciary. I've had consultations with other stakeholders, particularly Criminal Lawyers Association, the Family Lawyers Association, Advocate Society, OBA, etc. And in early January, on January 10th, on a Friday afternoon, I received a letter from the Attorney General. It was sent to various stakeholders, including FOLA, and he set out how he was intending to change the judicial selection process for Ontario. And he asked for feedback by January 24th, so 2 weeks. But he asked that his letter be kept confidential. So we were not able to distribute it to our members, being the associations. And what he was proposing in early January was really a huge step backwards from our current system of judicial appointments, with particularly relative to potential political interference in the judicial appointment process and judicial independence. So that letter set off another round of meetings with the Attorney General and numerous stakeholders. And then ultimately, we were all asked to go to the Ministry of the Attorney General, or Attorney General building in Toronto at the end of February. And really what that meeting turned out to be was a rollout of where the Attorney General had finally landed on this whole judicial appointment process. And where he ended up at the end of February was considerably better than where he was in early January, but it's still a definite step backwards from the status quo in terms of judicial independence, lack of political patronage in the appointment process, etc. So after that came out at the end of February, the stakeholders, so the Criminal Lawyers Association, FOLA, Advocate Society, family lawyers, etc., very much expected that this was about to go before the House. And we were preparing for that and preparing for how we're going to respond. The press were starting to get interested, and then all of a sudden COVID hit. And everything just ground to a halt, an immediate halt. And since COVID, what has really, the justice system has really, as you know, been turned somewhat upside down. The courts are operating on a very restricted basis. Things are starting to open up, particularly through the expanded use of technology. Even yesterday afternoon, you probably received the latest update on the expansion of criminal, family, and civil cases within your respective regions. And a little later this morning, Kirstin Muszynski is going to tell you about her work with an e-hearings task force that has been put together since COVID. So now, technology has the full attention of the Ministry of the Attorney General and the Attorney General himself personally. Last Friday afternoon, the Attorney General gave me a call, and he wanted to give me a heads up that his ministry was about to issue a press release announcing that the construction of a new courthouse in Halton was not going to go ahead. Instead, as his press release said, he was going to repurpose that money into province-wide technology to update what he was described as Ontario's antiquated justice system. This is bad news, certainly for Halton. The courthouse that is in Halton, it's actually in Milton, the Superior Courthouse, has been in need of replacement for years. For those of you who may not know, Halton includes Milton, Burlington, and Oakville. It has a population of about 600,000 people. It's one of the fastest growing regions in Canada, and its courthouse in Milton is not only inadequate, it's actually considered by the police and the Crowns and the judges to be unsafe. There's a couple of takeaways from this announcement that we got last Friday. First of all, it appears that the province is not going to be making any large investments in brick and mortar. If Halton can't get a new courthouse in that region, then no one's getting a new courthouse. Secondly, though, technology in our justice system is probably going to be fast-tracked. The Attorney General is taking a very personal interest in this. So that means for those, and I somewhat include myself, frankly, who have been resistant to technology, the time is coming that our skill sets are going to have to be brought up to date. It's an exciting development, I think. I think technology in our justice system is long overdue. It's unfair if the Halton Courthouse project is seen to be the sacrificial lamb to make it happen. The Halton falls into the Central West region. We've had a talk with Sam Michiel, who's the FOLA rep for Central West, as well as Ken Collertis, the Halton Law Association president, to see if what we can do to support them on this announcement. Because, as I say, that courthouse, I articled in Halton in 1983, and the courthouse wasn't very good then. And 37 years later, it's a lot worse. Second thing is mentorship, just briefly. At the November plenary, I spoke of the need for a more, what I thought was the need for a more fulsome form of professional mentorship that reached all four corners of the province. I think that even though there's a number of entities like the Law Society, various associations that offer mentorship. A more effective approach would come from a coordinated effort between the bench, the bar, the law society, local law associations, all the justice stakeholders. And since November, I've had a number of opportunities to discuss that with the Law Society folks. I've bounced it off a number of judges, bounced it off a number of other stakeholders, and I've had a pretty positive response to the idea of a more coordinated approach. So with the help of the Law Society and with the help of Chief Justice Strathy's office, a meeting was arranged between the Attorney General, the Chief Justice, the Law Society, justice stakeholders like the OBA, Advocate Society, criminal lawyers, family law lawyers, legal aid groups, etc. The topic for that discussion, it was set for a half a day, was how to improve Ontario's justice system, and my big pitch was going to be an effective, coordinated, and across the province mentorship program. The only problem was that the date for the meeting was set for March 24th. And it was canceled because of COVID. I have 18 months to go as past chair after today. The executive has kindly agreed that I can continue to sort of chase this mentorship rainbow during that time. I intend to do so. I think it's needed. One of the things that struck me since COVID, and particularly, is the if technology is going to be fast-tracked, we may be seeing mentorship that's required by the senior members of the bar who really aren't up to technology. So this may be one of those unusual situations where it's the younger members of the bar who are going to be providing mentorship to the senior members of the bar whose technological skills are certainly not up to scratch, and they need to catch up real quick. And then the last thing is COVID. What a spring this has been. And it's not just the weather. Since COVID, our focus has primarily been on getting information out to the profession, passing questions on to the Attorney General or judges or the Law Society, and trying to get answers to those questions and get them back to the profession. Meredith and Eldon have done a remarkable job stepping up, working with the Law Society and with government on matters that are crucial for solicitors, in particular the real estate bar. I think Katie has been on more calls than she can count. I'm sure your practices in your daily life has been consumed with COVID. Hopefully we're starting to round the corner and get back into some semblance of normalcy. Just as I just mentioned, one of the initiatives that we've been involved in is an e-hearings task force, which has been spearheaded by the OBA and the Advocate Society. And Kirstin is going to tell you about that in a little while. So that's my chair's report. That's sort of the three things that have been happening since November. With that, I will turn it over to our Executive Director, Katie, for her report.
Thank you, Mike. Hi, everyone. I'm going to share my screen so we can, hopefully this works and we can walk through the presentation together. Is everybody able to see it?
I can.
Yes. Wait. Oh, I can't right now. There we go. Okay. So we've sent a few submissions since our November plenary. I've hyperlinked them here, and this presentation is on the website on our plenary page. So you're more than welcome to download it and click on the links to see. I won't go into any of these in detail. I do want to say, though, that with regards to the Bill 161, the Smarter and Stronger Justice Act, that bill where we were going to be testifying or making a presentation to the committee where it had been referred to has, there are no committees sitting right now, but the legislature resumed on May 12th. And we are expecting, or we're hoping that the committees will also resume and maybe we will appear virtually. So that's still in the works. That update about the committees right now is on our website, but I can certainly keep you posted or give you more information. You're more than welcome to email me and I can go into that a little bit more. And we recently, in light of the COVID issue, we have sent with the Alliance of with regards to legal aid, have sent letters to both the Attorney General here in Ontario and the Minister of Justice requesting more funding for legal aid. The funding on the federal side is to assist with refugee efforts. So we've been pressing the federal guys for a long time about that, but the COVID issue makes that all the more relevant right now. I threw in a funny slide that I'll assume I can't see any of you right now, so I'll assume you're all laughing hysterically. The coronavirus.
Well, no, we can't. I can't see. Sorry,
off.
I can't see the split screen. I don't know if anyone else can. It flashed on for a moment, but now I can't see it.
I can't see that.
I can't see the screen
Oh.
either.
Okay, let me try that again. Can you see it now?
Yes, I can see it now.
Yep.
Okay, so I just fast forward there. There's the funny slide. So it's also in the presentation. You can have a laugh at that if you want. So COVID, as Mike said, I've been on a few calls. We were having daily calls thanks to the Ontario Bar Association. They ramped up a big association group. So I call it the sector calls. There are weekly sector calls, but we've been having them with the Advocate Society, Legal Aid Ontario, OTLA, but most important, and Law Society, which has been on each and every call, and they give us great updates as to what they're doing. But really, the courts have been fantastic in getting information and responding to some of your questions. Meg, we try to make sure they're on each call, but they have not been on every call, but they certainly get fed the information after each call. And we do engage them as much as possible because a lot of the decisions and responses to a lot of your questions or your members' questions relate to the Ministry of the Attorney General. We also are getting a lot of notices from the courts and from the Law Society and from the ministry. And so I do try my best to get those out to you in real time. Sometimes that's on weekends and late at night, but I do try and make sure that you get those as well as with links. So we get them up on our website so you can see those. And we have recently struck two separate committees out of the sector calls, one with regards to family law and one with regards to criminal law that look at immediate and long-term solutions to some of the issues that COVID is presenting itself with. And we understand that there are some issue-specific areas with that. And I've been sending out notices asking for some input, and I will be doing that a little bit more over the weekend. I think in my last report, I also solicited some responses. So if you do have anything that you'd like to see, something that's not being addressed right now because of the shutdowns of the courts or with anything that's impacting your workload, certainly let me know. We are aware of a number of issues, and if you sent issues in, I've got them. But if there's anything new that you haven't flagged for me, let me know. And on our website, we've had a number of updates, and we've got some right now. We've been building out the website on mental health resources because we understand this is a very difficult time for lawyers. But we also have a lot of online tools in our practice resource section that can help both preparing for video conferencing, tools to help you get your payments processed faster, all sorts of tools that can help you in your day-to-day practice. So we hopefully that's helpful to you. We've also been busy working on our member rewards. I appreciate that some of the rewards we have in existence right now are really related to the travel sector or moving around, which haven't been very beneficial to anyone right now. And we are working on some other ones, which I'll go into in a second, but we do have a lot of online resources. So I would encourage you to look into some of these. We have a new relationship with the Canadian Cyber Threat Exchange It is phenomenal. So it has a lot of resources on cybersecurity and threats that you might be encountering now that your entire business is online, or at least 90% of it. So you might want to take a look at that. They have some webinars from time to time, and I can make sure that you have access to all of those. TechSoup too is something to look at, especially if you're a law librarian. So if you are the president and you want to flag this with your law librarian, they provide discounts on hardware and software for nonprofits and for charities, but nonprofits and libraries. So they are a great resource to look into. While FOLA has a membership, if your association wants to join, you would need your own membership, but we are a member, and I can certainly give you some more information on that. There is information on our website. And of course, CPD online. Go Ahead Tours, this is a little bit less relevant now, but they certainly have made the offer, and it still stands, that they are willing to come to your law associations and provide food and drink, to ask for about 5 or 10 minutes to do a little spiel on travel and work with you to see what you can do for your members or in regional groups to get a trip of your own going. They'll piggyback on an event. So if you're planning an existing event like a CPD night or something, they will spring for the food as long as they get some speaking time. I think it's great, a great offer. And hopefully in the near future, that will be ramping up again soon. These are the ones I'm currently working on. I am looking for 3 associations. Tell us, we've got a deal with them to provide all of your members with a great business plan on their mobile carrier network. So if you are interested and want more information about this deal, let me know. Once there's a trick with how the codes work, and so they don't want to launch it FOLA wide right now, but they are looking for 3 associations, and I do appreciate that Waterloo is interested. So basically the call is out for 2, but don't hesitate to send me a quick email, and I will look at reviews and pick 3. They do want associations of various sizes and regionality, so that will be a factor in who's there. I have started the process on Park and Fly, FedEx, and Via Rail, and I'm just waiting to hear from head office to get confirmation on those. So those should hopefully be announced soon. As you can imagine, though, with the COVID, everyone's business is a little bit up in arms, and so they're a little bit slow on getting back. We had a lobby day, thank goodness. This was scheduled for late or kind of mid to late February, and it went ahead as planned in person. So we got more than, I think 60 people to attend, and we had a full day of activities at Queen's Park. So yeah, 60 lawyers from all associations, and we did the full day starting with an advocacy training session. We got everyone to attend question period, and we hosted a really well received reception that was with cabinet ministers, staff, MPPs, and from all parties. And it was, I think, well attended, and I think everyone enjoyed themselves. And then we broke off into meetings, and there were 26 separate meetings throughout the day, and we got a few media hits with that. So that was, I think, all in all, a successful day, including the town hall with the NDP critic, who gave us quite a bit of his time. And that was a nice relationship to really kickstart there. We hadn't had many dealings with him at that time. We are planning to do this. I've highlighted, and I won't go into them too much here, but we did cover a number of issues. We focused on those. And we are planning for one again this year. I've inquired about booking the same room. As you can imagine, the legislature, the last thing they're looking at is room bookings right now for any in-person event. The room we had is the one where the Premier is currently doing his daily YouTube videos from, his daily videos on the COVID update. And so, but that is in the works. So if you want to just hold the date March 3rd, that would be great. So some of the things that we're looking at to change it up for next year, I think the attendance was really large. We're looking at capping it at about 50 people. And But anyone, any lawyer or member of the association can come to join at the lunch, which I know makes it a little bit trickier for people who travel further and makes it easier for people with some local proximity. But we are in, you know, the volume at lunch isn't necessarily the issue, it's the managing of people in meetings. I think sometimes some of our meetings had about 8 people in them, which made them a little bit unmanageable and was I guess a good lesson to learn the hard way. So we're thinking of making each meeting smaller, and that just means that we would be limiting the amount of people. And we would stick with the same topics, we think, although those can be changed depending on what's coming on. And other topics would still be TBD, and meetings with local MPPs would certainly be encouraged, and we can always help coordinate those. I think what we changed the most is some of the prep work in advance, and that is having one every issue conference call where every committee chair would be speaking to that in 15, 30-minute segments. You could pop in and out as you would want, and then we'd have a recording of those of that conference call up online so everyone can see it. I know not everyone was able to attend the conference calls that we had on issues, and so some people didn't feel as well briefed as they would have liked to have been. And we want to be able to address that. I will be up until the, you know, when we start to get really down to planning, revisiting that. We might break them off and keep them as 4 separate conference calls or Zoom meetings, but at least at the very least, they would be recorded and available to you to review after. And issues backgrounders, I appreciate some of them went over 2 pages. We want to make sure that they're limited to 1 page, very clear, defined ask, so that if anyone's pulling it out at the last second, they're very clear into a meeting that they're going to what the ask is on behalf of FOLA. Of course, these would be a little bit different if you're having a meeting with your own member of provincial parliament, but those would be the template backgrounders. And then follow-up materials. I'd like to have some pre-planned draft thank you letters and emails that you can send out to the people who you met with. It is way better to have the thank you come from the people that attended rather than from us. We do them anyway, but they are much more effective when they come from you. And to just do some more follow-up as well to make sure that you're following up on the issues that you rose during that event. I appreciate this year, because of following up with some of the issues, COVID threw a bomb in that. And so there isn't the kind of follow-up that would normally happen. But I normally would have been on you and to sort of check in with you to see how the follow-up was going. And I might very well do that as we plan out this new one, any loose ends for what you raised last year or in February. This is me speaking after January. And then making sure that we carry those on. But a lot of the issues that were raised sort of I appreciate sort of fallen or dropped off the radar screen for now. That doesn't mean they're gone or forgotten. It just means they've been sort of put on a shelf for a little bit. So that's that on the lobby day. Again, my email me with any questions at all after this meeting. I appreciate that. It's unfortunate you can't ask questions right now. FOLA's awards, today is the final day. We've extended it because of COVID, but after today at midnight, if I get your email at 11:59, that's fine. They will be sent off. FOLA has a committee and we'll be reviewing those and announcing the winner. We are going to be much more flexible in terms of how we physically or do the production of announcing. And so we'll be reaching out to every recipient and the association president and librarian of those associations of the winner to coordinate whether you're doing a virtual AGM and you want that presented virtually and how we might ship it. It's an actual plaque, a framed thing. So how we would get that to you, but we want to make sure there is a presentation, and whether it's in person or virtual, we will make that happen and make that really rewarding for the winners. FOLA online. So we continue to do quite well on our online Twitter followers. Everything keeps growing, which is great. I think what's more important is our Twitter impressions. We ran yet again a Bell Let's Talk Day, so you can see we really spike in January, which is fantastic. We had an intern this year who's joined us full-time as a formal intern through Guelph Humber, who is helping over the summer, but she was fantastic to really get us some great activity and engagement on social media for our Bell Let's Talk Day. That's all around mental health, and also our videos. So one of the things that, thanks to Jane, our trusty treasurer, she pointed out that it was a little bit it wasn't fully clear that our videos actually contained CPD credit that people could claim if they hadn't yet watched the video, especially from Plenary. So we've made that more clear, and come December, and we've been promoting these videos, but come December, when people are at a loss for their CPD credits, I know the Law Society's been pretty good about video right now with CPD, but in case anyone needs it, it's a good opportunity for us to get some more traffic through our YouTube channel. Our newsletters, I think I can't see because I've got a little window here, 286. So we've been moving up, and you can see a spike in our newsletter followers since COVID. So there's good silver lining there. Hopefully those people don't drop off and we see a downward spiral after COVID and people aren't needing the news that they are desperate for right now. And we've also been better, thanks to interns again. I've been working very well with interns over the past little while. We do have a dedicated intern aside from our summer intern who's been doing social media recently with us. And our traffic, not just on social media, but getting people to our website has greatly improved since our November plenary. So I wanted to point that out. And our Google Analytics, as you can see, has spiked over COVID. So whether it's through Google searches, through our newsletters, or distribution through through members or through social media, we are gaining, our traction on our website has been phenomenal. That's just a little notice so you can see where people are coming into our website and landing on. And so the MAG page, which is normally MAG, it is where our real hub of all the COVID stuff is right now. And so you can see that that's where we're getting the most significant bounce. I want your newsletters. So if you have newsletters, events, virtual included, I want them. We can help you promote them. We can use our social media and website to do that and gain some eyeballs on your events, especially if you're charging for them. I know associations are in need of revenue. We can help. And tag us on social media when you want us to retweet something. We are your PR firm. We're here to help. At about noon today, you'll all be sent a quick, we promise, quick survey about this plenary. And so if you could take a moment to fill that out, that would be really, really, really helpful. And again, if you have any questions, there's my email, and I am happy to answer them, just not right now, unfortunately. And I think I should be no more on my stop screen save. There we go. Back to normal.
Okay.
The end.
That's great. Thanks, Katie. Next, we have Johanne, Blenkin, and Neil Gurthie from LIRN. Normally, I would do a fairly lengthy introduction for people that have the impressive credentials of Johanne and Neil, but given our format, I'm going to forgo that, and I'm sort of asking them to introduce themselves. This is the first time.
Are they on the line on the call yet?
I'm not sure, actually.
I'm wondering if Kelly can. Yes. Okay.
Okay. So I'm effectively asking them to introduce themselves to everybody. This LIRN process has been a long one, and we now have a board. And so I'd like to extend a welcome to Johanne and Neil. And Johanne, if I could just put it over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that introduction. And thank you very much for inviting us to your meeting today. I know that given this pandemic, everybody's got Zoom fatigue, and that you have a lot of things you want to get done in this meeting. So what we're going to do with Neil and I is just to give you a bit of our own background, some background on the board, and some of the steps that we're taking. But one thing I can say right off the top, since nobody can ask questions today, is that we will be reaching out to the FOLA Library Committee, and probably sometime early in June, and setting up a Zoom meeting where they can actually ask questions and we can answer them. So we are going to be starting that relationship. We were all hoping we could actually meet in person, but that's not obviously going to happen for a while. So we're doing the best we can there. So I'm going to start off, much as I dislike talking about myself, I thought it would probably be helpful for some of you wondering, who is this woman from BC and why is she chairing the Ontario board? So I'll just give you a little bit of my background, and I won't go through too much of it, but I'm a law librarian, and I started off in public libraries and then went to law school at the U of A in Edmonton. And there's a bit of a story behind that. Eugene Meehan was a professor at the university there. I was going to do a master's in history, and Eugene decided that, no, I really ought to go to law school. And if any of you have ever worked with Eugene, you'll know that you don't say no. I found myself writing the LSAT in law school and then articling. So I practiced mostly labor law and family law in Edmonton, and then went back and worked, ran the library, did legal research for a large firm. That we moved to BC. I worked for a large firm there, and then we moved to Vancouver Island, and I practiced, again, not labor law, but litigation and family law in a very small community in the Comox Valley. I think there are about 15,000 people. I did a lot of legal aid, a lot of pro bono, and I'm very familiar with practicing in a small community. And I was there for about 10 years. I was appointed, and my practice shifted from primarily litigation to more collaborative law and mediation, which I found more effective in family law. And then I was appointed to the board of the Courthouse Library Society because they wanted regional representation. I sat on that board for about 4 years. And when the executive director resigned, I missed the library work. And so I resigned from the board and applied, and I was the CEO of the Courthouse Library for about 12 years. During that time, this was in the early 2000s, the provincial government had slashed their budget. They had just slashed legal aid. It was awful. And so it was dramatically cut back, and there was huge pressure on trying to deliver more services to the public. And they also closed about 15 courthouses, so we had to close 15 libraries. And the structure of CLBC is there's, right from the very beginning when it was set up, it has a mandate to serve the public, the judiciary, and the lawyers. So there was always that inherent tension between the Law Foundation funding and the Law Society funding, and making sure that we were serving both the legal profession, the judiciary, as best we could, they had their own library, and meeting the needs of the public. And with the cuts to legal aid, the pressure to really ramp up the work we were doing for the public was intense. So we did that. We also had a lot of funding pressures from the Law Society, some of whom thought that lawyers just needed Canley. So it was a really interesting challenge to try and work through that. But we did it. And the way we did it was to really take a very strong user needs approach and to take a data-driven approach. So I am absolutely, that's something I'm really committed with. The library hadn't been collecting very much data. So I was really pleased listening to Katie that you're using Google Analytics, you're doing all of those things, because all of that information and that data really informs what you can do and how you do it. So those were the kinds of things we did. We started using Google Analytics and things on the website. We had focus groups. We really built strong relationships with the local bar so that we could really figure out what their needs were. So even though we had difficult financial situation, we actually managed to turn things around and increase our services while we actually reduced some of our overhead. And the overhead reductions were not in the small libraries or the regional libraries. They were at head office and admin. And that's how we restructured and reorganized processes, and we did it gradually. So that's the sort of background there. And so I was really pleased to be, I've also been on the Canley board and sat on Access Pro Bono in BC and other boards. So I'm very committed to governance. And I'm at the stage in my career now where I have the time to devote to this. And I'm deeply committed to libraries, legal information, and resources for lawyers. It's something that I think is absolutely critical. It's foundational. And when we talk about access to justice, it's really important to have lawyers who have a solid background and have the resources and tools that they need in order to serve the public well. So the LIRN board is just now getting up to speed. One thing that we've noticed, and I'm going to turn it over to Neil to talk more about the board. I just want to say that as chair, my role is neutral. My role is to make sure that everyone speaks up, everyone has all the information they need to make the decisions, to make sure that we're engaging with stakeholders and shareholders effectively. I don't drive the decision making at all. It's a very much a neutral role. So that's the position that I'm in. So I'm just going to turn it over to Neil to talk a bit about his impressive background, and he'll talk a bit about the board, and then I'm going to come back to some of the things we're doing now.
Thanks, Johanne. I'm Neil Gurthie, and I'm Director of Professional Development, Research, and Knowledge Management at Airden Burles. And for the past 15 plus years of my legal career, I've been doing some kind of mix of legal research, knowledge management, and continuing professional development. I've taught legal research and writing at both the Faculty of Law at U of T and in the LPP at Robertson. So I'm deeply committed to legal research, making research resources accessible to people. The board is small, which I think is good because I think that allows us to be agile. It's a mix of lawyers and non-lawyers, librarians and non-librarians, and I think it's a good mix. We were recruited by a search firm based on our skills. So it's not a sort of you're a representative of so-and-so kind of board anymore. It's what skills do you bring to the table to help make decisions that are strategic and relevant to the users of the county libraries. So I think we're well placed to get going. We need to recruit a managing director, but we're in the process of doing that.
Great, thanks, Neil. One of the things that we've discovered and that COVID really brought to the fore was the need to get somebody in on a contract basis. We know that the managing director can't do everything themselves, that they're going to need some staff. We did not want to hire somebody before we hire a managing director, and COVID, of course, has slowed everything down. But we need somebody in place. So we're in the process of interviewing somebody who could come in on a 6-month contract and act as an operations liaison, if you will, and then help the managing director when they start to get up to speed. Because as a board, we're very conscious that we're not a management board. So we can't cross that line into management. But when COVID happened, we really recognized that the librarians and the staff were facing incredible challenges trying to figure out, should they close, what kind of services should they do, how are they going to serve lawyers when nobody had access to the library. And I would really like to take this opportunity to send a huge thank you to Nathan Baker, who stepped up and has worked with us to really ensure that we could get some interim digital services available to lawyers in Ontario. He's been absolutely great. So what the board did was designate Rosalie Fox, who's the former librarian of the Supreme Court of Canada, to be the board's point person to liaise with staff and with FOLA. So they've managed to set up free access to LexisNexis and Thomson Westlaw. And that's in place till the end of May, and we'll renegotiate that. So this, we're hoping to have somebody in place June 1st in terms of the interim person. As soon as that's nailed down, I'll be reaching out to the FOLA Library Committee so that we can actually start to talk about what kind of a plan needs to be in place, how can we help, what needs to be done in order when we gradually reopen, what are some of the issues around that, because we need to start planning for that now. I think BC is probably a little bit ahead of Ontario in terms of gradually reopening, but we'll see what happens with that. So that's the main thing. The other thing that the board has been doing is that we're very conscious of the fact there's been a long gap between Library Co. and LIRN. And so there's a lot of library staff don't really know sort of who to go to, what's happening collectively. They know through their regular associations. And we know there's a sort of built up frustration and let's get this moving and let's get this going. So we've been spending our time making sure that the board has really solid governance processes. We have a governance committee. We're establishing policies. One of the other things we want the interim person to do is to set up a website so that we can actually start communicating effectively, because we can't right now. And it's really critical that we actually establish that relationship and build that trust. So one thing that I'll close with, and is that when I was looking at all of the websites and looking at all of the information when I was being interviewed for this board, one thing that struck me is that it seemed to me that there's been a history of a sort of tense relationship amongst shareholders and stakeholders, some stakeholders, if I can put it that way. And so what the board is really committed to is that we're a new board. We're coming with a fresh perspective. We have a commitment to making this work. And so what I am going to ask is, and I'm saying this to all of the shareholders and the stakeholders, is can we put the past where it belongs? And that's in the past. And let's start now. And let's start fresh and let's work closely together. You've got the bones of a really good setup. You've got talented people. Let's make that work. And I think it's even more important now, given all the uncertainty and all of the things that have happened as a result of this pandemic, that we really pull together and make this work effectively so that lawyers are really well supported. They're getting the services they need. It's going to be challenging times ahead for everyone, and I think that if we can work together collaboratively, we'll get so much more done, and that's something I'm really looking forward to doing. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that you'll be able to have a plenary in November that is some form of in person, and that we can actually meet in person and not via a screen. But for now, we'll use Zoom the best we can, and we're going to keep the lines of communication open. So while you haven't seen much from us yet, you will. We have a commitment to being more transparent, to communicating effectively. We just haven't had a chance to get all that up and running. So we'll do that as quickly as we can. And we are really looking forward to working with you and working with all of the stakeholders to make this work. So, and I also would just like to say that it's 6:45 my time, and I haven't been, I'm not as well caffeinated as I would like to be. So if I'm rambling on a bit, it's because I think I haven't had enough coffee. So I'm going to stop now. And thank you again for asking us to come to this meeting.
Well, thank you, Johanne and Neil. I wondered what time you had to get up this morning to get onto this call. So we very much appreciate it. And I know that we all look forward to working with you, with Neil and the rest of the board. And it should be an exciting time. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next thing we have, I mentioned in my opening remarks that Kirstin has been participating on a legal tech task force. It's pretty exciting, so I'll just turn it over to Kirstin to go ahead.
Great, thanks very much, Mike. I've actually been participating in several groups, and I'll just give you a brief update on the status of those. The first group was struck, and it was called the e-hearings task force. And our immediate job was to try and identify e-filing platforms that we could recommend to the judiciary and to MAG. One of the biggest impediments to going to a virtual system has really been filing. You can see in the Chief Justice's notice yesterday that a bit of a stopgap solution has been that parties are able to send in emails with attachments, PDF attachments that are properly labeled, and that motions and things can proceed that way. But what they're really looking for is a longer term solution where parties would be able to log on to a system and upload their documents directly there, as opposed to having to go through court staff to do that. So what we did on the e-hearings task force was all broke up and investigated various platforms that already existed. There are different jurisdictions throughout this country and the world that are using platforms just like the one that we're talking about. So we put together a list of recommended platforms and sent that to MAG to review. The next job of the task force, which was expanded to include representatives from throughout the province, the first task force, actually, I was the only non-Toronto participant. The second broader group had representatives from every judicial region. And the role of that group was to create a best practices document, which I believe you all should have received yesterday. And the best practices document was really drafted to provide lawyers and self-represented litigants an idea of what's expected if you have to proceed by way of a virtual hearing. And really that's what's coming, is virtual hearings. And we've seen through the Chief Justice's notice yesterday that that's sort of phase one in terms of virtual hearings. It is going to expand beyond phase one. So the Advocate Society, OBA, FOLA, and other stakeholders decided it was appropriate to provide the bar and users of the justice system with this best practices document. It took some time to draft, but I'm quite happy with the final version. It includes some relatively handy checklists that are also included as appendices to the best practices. So hopefully everybody finds that helpful. Now, with respect to the specific platforms, right now, I believe the preference is Zoom. It's not limited to Zoom, and really there is no consensus quite yet as to which way it's going to go in terms of e-hearings. I know we're going to be hearing more about that in the near future, but the way the best practices read is that they're sort of neutral with respect to platform. So we don't know exactly whether or not it's going to be Skype or Teams or Zoom in terms of the virtual platform, just like we're not exactly sure what is going to be the document filing system. So we kept those particulars neutral, but it does have some useful information. I'd say the overall theme is, to the extent possible, the court is now really expecting lawyers to work together to come up with creative solutions. Another interim solution that parties are doing on some urgent matters is to create their own Dropbox and get the court's permission to access documents that way. Really, the onus, I would say, is shifting to lawyers to really work together to make these things happen. The e-filings committee, now that the e-task force committee is continuing to work, we've got a meeting today at 11 o'clock, and we'll see where we go from there now that the best practices are drafted. I've also been asked to be on the SCJ Civil Working Group, and that is a working group with the Associate Chief Justice, regional senior judges and lawyers from across the province to work on how to implement e-hearings, practically speaking. So in that respect, we're going to be having to liaise with the Civil Rules Committee and the different regions to see really how we're going to roll out these phases in practicality. So really that means what's going to be tackled first, pre-trials, motions that are uncontested or unopposed, would likely be happening first, then expanding things as we go and as we get those new the new infrastructure in place. Then I'm also working on a small claims working group as well, and the same thing is happening with a small claims working group. Is we are working on drafting a rollout for getting virtual hearings up and going. Again, right now the biggest impediment really is that the infrastructure is not there. MAG has been participating on these calls, so they're aware of what is required on their part in order to get us to a point where we can actually do hearings virtually. And that's my update on that front.
Thanks very much. It sounds exciting, a little bit scary maybe, but we're moving forward for sure. Okay, next is Jane's Treasurer's report.
Thanks, Mike. Everybody hear me?
Yep.
Good, thank you. So first of all, the materials went out last week. I'm hoping everyone has read them. If anyone has any questions, I'll open it up towards the end. I just have a couple of comments, really. They're fairly broad. First of all, on the good news side of it, even though we were one of the organizations that might have qualified for some of the government handouts as a result of COVID, we were in sufficiently good financial state that we didn't need to do that. So the taxpayers among us can be grateful for that. We're all taxpayers. Generally, as you might expect on a go forward basis, figuring out the numbers is a bit like trying to figure stuff out through a glass darkly. This plenary, for instance, we've always got a huge number budgeted for it, and we're not going to be incurring anything like that amount. But just for everyone's information, the very, very large portion of that is actually funded by the Law Society. So it's what we call flow-through, a flow-through expense, which at the end of the day means I don't expect there's going to be a huge change to our bottom line. There will be a little bit of a change, but at this point, I don't want to guess what it's going to look like. So it's a kind of a wait and see. One of the big pieces that you'll see in the materials is that we appear to have about a $30,000 excess at the end of the year. And I just wanted to say, first of all, on the subject of the FOLA Lobby Day, thank you to Katie, and everyone else who pulled so hard to pull that together. It was a great success. I think everyone who was there really enjoyed it. But what we're going to be doing is, and because of where that FOLA Lobby Day tends to fall relative to year ends, we're probably always going to have that little bit of an excess, look like we have that excess on a rollover basis, just because it's better to have that money behind us before we go into the Lobby Day. So that'll be something worth watching. But I just wanted to make the point that at least for now, the $30,000, it's not like it's money laying around that we don't have anything to do with. It's actually earmarked for the year following for the Lobby Day. And those are kind of all of the points I wanted to make with respect to the budget. We are in good shape, as I sort of alluded to at the beginning, so I don't have any concerns. If anyone has any questions about anything that is on the budget, I'll open it up to that. Otherwise, I'm going to look for a motion to accept the budget, to accept the financials.
Do we have a motion to accept the financial statements as presented?
Nick Lovell, Grey County, I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Nick. Any seconds?
Craig O'Brien, CCLA, I'll second.
Thank you. So there's now a little poll up. If you're in favor, against, please hit your buttons and submit. I'm not sure.
And sorry, just a reminder that only the presidents or delegate on behalf of the presidents to vote.
Thanks, Sam. Great, thank you.
Okay, is that, I think for any questions to Jane, because I had said earlier that we're really not going to open the microphones up. So by all means, if anybody does have a question, I think the easiest thing to do is what you said before, is direct them to Katie, and then Katie can direct them to Jane, and then we'll get back to you on it. Is that your report then, Jane?
Yes, other than just one small comment for everyone who is listening, and that is watch your cyber back. Go to the FOLA website, check out the links that Katie has talked about. They are out there. I got snagged. I won't take up plenary time telling everybody my story of woe. Excuse me, my story of woe, but do be careful. Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Next is the election of the FOLA executive for 2020-2021. And that's over to past chair Jaye Hooper.
Okay, all right, thank you very much, Mike. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so really, I just, in case people aren't aware, once a person is on the executive as a regional rep, they can move into what's called the second vice chair position. Once you're in the second vice chair, you automatically, after 18 months, move into the position of first vice chair. But there's a little kind of a little twist in our bylaws where the first vice chair normally automatically moves into the chair position, but there has to be a motion to approve the chair. So what I want to do now is the only person that we know of that's being put forth to be the chair for this coming term is William Woodward. I do have to ask if there are any nominations that are going to be made today other than William Woodward. I'm going to take that as a no, unless someone was quickly unmuting. So there is a motion that we have to put forth, if Kelly could put that up. So I need someone to move that William Woodward will be elected as FOLA chair for the 2020-2021 term. Can I have a mover for that?
It's Erin from Middlesex Law Association.
Yeah.
I'll move that.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Can I have a seconder?
Warren White Knight from Frontenac Law Association.
Sure. Wow, everyone wants to move and second this. Bill, you're
They
very
want to
popular.
get rid of the guy who's there now, Jay.
So, okay, so there is a poll. If you could, if one member of each association, the president or the delegate designate could vote, please. Okay, so that motion has carried. So congratulations to William Woodward, who is now the FOLA chair. The next thing I just wanted to do is we had put out a couple of notices for regional reps. We only have been provided with one name for each regional representative position. So I'm just going to read them out for you. They are Northwest, Douglas Judson; Northeast, Gordon Prisco; Central East, Corey Wall; Central South, Alan Winpearl; Central West, Sam Michiel; East Region, Kirstin Muszynski. Oh, sorry, not East Region. Yeah, you're still the East Region rep. And Southwest, Terry Brandon. So those are the regional representatives for the next term. And that is the end of the election of the FOLA executive.
Our agenda gave you half an hour, Jay. How would you like to spend the next 27 minutes of your time?
I know. I don't know why. We had a couple of prep calls for everyone else who's on the call, and no one seemed to pick up that we had a half an hour.
Yeah.
For the FOLA
So
election.
the good news behind that is that you can all get a coffee real soon because we're almost finished. Just some final remarks on my part, if I may. I have a lot of people to thank, particularly the members of the executive who made my term as chair an absolute pleasure. But I'm around for another 18 months as past chair. So frankly, I'd rather express my thanks in person rather than through a computer screen. We have a couple of executive members who have termed out, and Bill's going to be extending our thanks to them. And I may have an opportunity to see people and thank them in person during the next 18 months as past chair. But the same can't be said for Jaye, because this is Jay's last meeting. And given what she has done for the lawyers in this province during her time on the FOLA board, and particularly the absolute instrumental role she played in transitioning from library code to LIRN. It's not at all fitting, at least to me, that we say goodbye to her and extend our best wishes through these little chiclet-sized faces on a computer. With all of us, except me, with our mics turned off. This just isn't going to do. So, my last act as chair, I'm inviting Jaye to join us at our next plenary, which I really hope is going to be in November. So all of us can extend our thanks and best wishes in person in a much more appropriate and social setting. So Jaye, I hope you don't mind giving us another day or two of your time, but we'd really like to see you back in person rather than parting in this type of a format. So I hope you can find the time to join us.
That would be great. That would be great. Thanks very much.
So now it is time to go from the age of Winward to the age of Woodward. Please welcome Bill as our new incoming FOLA chair.
Good morning, everyone. I hope I'm unmuted. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for participating in our first virtual plenary. Hopefully our last, but one never knows. It's a first for many things. It's the first time I've put on a suit and tie in about 8 or 9 weeks, and the good news is it still fits. I know from your perspective that all of this seemed to happen quite easily and with very little effort. However, behind the scenes, as usual, Kelly Lovell has spent many hours learning and testing our Zoom capabilities and ensuring that we will not have any security issues, and I would like to thank her on everyone's behalf. I would also like to thank our outgoing board members for their service. In no particular order, Bridget Wilkinson, our Northeast representative, who has made many long drives from Haileybury to attend our meetings and plenaries, and has provided us with an introduction to a number of craft beers from her travels. Nathan Baker, our Central East Regional representative, who has delivered his impaired testing seminar at a prior plenary and has been a loud, strong voice on the library committee. Nathan has graciously agreed to stay on as our LIRN committee chair. Renee Larson has been our Northwest representative and has not only brought the Northern perspective to the board, but also a solicitor practice view. His involvement with the Boer-Alaskan Law School is a further demonstration of his dedication to the profession. I would like to welcome our new board members, Corey Wall, who practices in Peterborough, who will now represent Central East, Alan Winepearl, who practices in Hamilton, who will represent Central South, Doug Judson, who practices in Fort Francis and will represent the Northwest, and Gord Prisco, who will represent the Northeast. I want to thank each of you for stepping up and representing your regions, as our reach and ability to receive input from across the province is so important to what we do. I'm beginning to feel like I'm at the Oscars, but there are just a couple of more people to thank. I would like to thank Katie Robinette for her efforts during this COVID-19 crisis. You may not have noticed, but I suspect that many of you did, that each important announcement from either the courts or the government generally was posted first to our members. Credit must be given to both Katie and Kelly for making sure that our members received that information on a timely basis. I also congratulate and thank the members of the board for working diligently and providing updates which were passed along. Finally, I would like to thank Mike Winward. I'm sure he is doing the happy dance right now, but I suspect a few things will remain on his plate for a while. It will not be easy to step into his shoes, and despite the fact that I've been on the board now for 7 years, I know I have a steep learning curve ahead of me. Mike has made it look easy, but I know that he has worked tirelessly in preparing and delivering our message and position in a variety of forums and submissions. I hope to prepare a more complete review of his accomplishments that would be up to his standards, but time today does not permit. And I will have to leave that until hopefully November, when I hope we can all be together and not 6 feet apart. Mike, thank you for your commitment and dedication. May you live in interesting times. Wow. Be careful what you ask for. We had a strategic planning meeting last June, and I rather facetiously suggested we consider and discuss crisis planning. Never in my wildest dreams did I anticipate something like this. I was thinking more along the lines as a board that we plan ahead for a variety of issues, but inevitably something jumps up and bites us on the rear end that we don't anticipate. We scramble to deal with it. One of our strengths has always been our ability to be nimble and responsive and not be bogged down in bureaucracy and committees. I'm very proud of our involvement and input in this time of crisis to keep the wheels of justice turning and maintaining a strong line of communication between the bench and bar. I want to build a stronger line of communication between each of you and your regional representatives. Our association has come a long way in the past 7 years that I've been directly involved, and we continue to expand our reach with initiatives like Lobby Day, which has opened the door to new and more personal relationships with our provincial government. Finally, I would like to develop a more supportive relationship with the Law Society rather than what at times has been an us and them situation. Our goals can coexist and be mutually beneficial. A stronger and competent bar will serve the public interest. I look forward to working with our board and the new perspectives our new representatives will bring. I am excited and energized and look forward to the challenge ahead. And I know that my vice chair, John Krachenko, and my second vice chair, Kirstin Muszynski, will provide the support and leadership to get us through these interesting times. Thank you all for your participation today and representing your associations. The good news is we're going to finish early. So please stay safe and healthy, and I look forward to seeing all of you in November. So unless there are any other issues that we need to discuss at this point, I declare this plenary closed.
Bye, everybody.
Thank
Be
you.
well.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
So long.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye,
Guys.
thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.
Hello?